This is the perfect intro to a video, just me babbling about how I need to be hydrated. Okay. So here's the second part of our interview with Nick from Shrimpy Business. Just a heads up, again, a reminder this was done during human malware out of respect for Nick's family and request of his wife. We've done this remotely at first, but in the near future, we will be touring his shrimp room and doing a little bit more, checking out all the cool stuff that he has in person, getting some great filming, all that kind of stuff. But for now, this is going to be a remote interview. So enjoy all the tips and tricks from a guy who's really learned a ton about shrimp. Hello, everyone. This is Bentley, and I'm back with Nick from ShrimpyBusiness.com, a master shrimp breeder. Even though he's not going to admit it, he's too humble. But a guy who, in 5 years, went from just starting to learn shrimp to running an online shrimp business. So I think we can get a couple tips and tricks out of the man to be successful with shrimp, because obviously he's figured it out. So, with that being said, let's first talk about one thing. I'm gonna give your business a little plug, right? You have a product specifically, and I have it in my cart over here that you've developed. So let's talk about your shrimp food.
So first of all, thank you for the intro. I'm not a master shrimp breeder by any means, and many folks who've been around longer than I have. But yeah, I guess we figured out a thing or two when it comes to shrimp breeding just from being in the hobby. But yeah, our shrimp food. I work with my breeder. We're in Taiwan, and we develop a couple of kinds of foods that we sell. So our main staple is Shrimpy Party. So Shrimpy Party has basically all the ingredients that we found that's essential for shrimp. So we have all the minerals that are needed, all the other micronutrition like other vitamins and beta glucan that's in the food, and also it has really good quality protein. We use actually bug protein, a good quality, high quality bug protein in our foods, which the shrimp just eat up. We found really good success in using that food encouraging breeding. Excuse me. And the other food that we use as well is Protein Party. So Protein Party is a little bit different than Sugar Party in the sense that we actually add a little bit more protein in that food. So we alternate between Sugar Party and Protein Party. So the reasoning behind that is Protein Party gives enough protein for the very females to carry their eggs all the way to birth, to make sure that they're healthy through that period.
Okay.
Just also to minimize losses, minimize egg dropping because they require definitely more nutrition during that period. So we alternate between Chubby Party and Protein Party, and then we also have Snowflake Party. So Snowflake Party we throw in once a week, or to be totally transparent is when let's say I'm going on vacation, or we want to skip a day of feeding. I throw in Snowflake Party. So Snowflake Party is basically organic soybean hulls. So we throw it in on Saturday, and I skip feeding on Sunday.
Okay.
So they disintegrate, and they provide media for biofilm to grow. So there's a lot of folks who buy that product, and they're like, "Oh my God, there's a whole bunch of food in my tank. I can't get rid of it." I'm like, "Don't panic, it's okay. It won't rot in your tank. They're just organic soybean hulls." Obviously, if you put in a whole bag, that's an issue. But if you throw
Yeah.
in a pellet in there and it disintegrates, and they're not finishing it, it's fine. You can leave it in your tank for a couple of days, and they'll eventually get to it. So it's a totally organic product, totally natural. Won't foul the water. So we use that when I'm going on vacation, or we decide to take a break for a couple of days. We throw it in there, and they'll be fine for 2 3 days of no feeding, because it just has that media for biofilm to grow. And just a little teaser, another product we're developing is Baby Party. So Baby Party is a powder food that we've been developing with our breeder, just to increase the yields from the shrimplets. So
Hmm.
we have a food for the shrimp, we have food for the berry mamas, but now we have food for the shrimplets. So we found that this food really increased the yields from for our shrimplets, getting them from a baby to adult. So we found really good success with them. So it'll be out very soon.
And I think one thing I want to stress, just because you're mentioning it, but this is developed in conjunction with a farm. And
Yep.
anything that is, to me, and I've kind of gained this experience firsthand working with on the fish food side with Extreme, just anything that's developed to work on a fish farm, and
Hmm.
then specifically like, okay, this is successful on our farm, let's make a slight tailoring to make sure that it's dosable at an aquarium level, because not everybody has their own full farming ponds or something like that, right, at home.
Hmm.
I think that warrants a lot of attention, because farms do it for a very, very good reason,
Hmm.
and they're not going to use some food that's absolutely terrible because it risks their entire reputation for their business.
Right. Right. Yeah, that's totally right. So
So just
our
just one little
yeah.
thing I want to stress, that this is food developed with a farm. So that's really
Hmm.
important to note, as far as people that definitely know what they're doing when it comes to shrimp,
Hmm.
developing a food specifically for shrimp and a home hobbyist. It's pretty awesome to
Right.
me. All right. So with that being said, we've plugged that, and the reason why we've plugged that is we're going to notice a pattern. So one generic pattern when you're setting up a shrimp tank, right? Other than there's some slight GH/KH differences between the different types of shrimp, what are the steps that you go through to make sure that that is going to be a successful shrimp tank?
Right. So um, for newer shrimp breeders, we found that they purchase out
This
they
guy.
purchase. So they purchase shrimp, and then they put in a really clean. They were like, okay, they did come to us, and they mentioned it's been cycled, and they had shrimp in there, and they weren't successful. So the first thing I usually ask is, send me a picture of your tank, and it's super clean. There's nothing growing in that tank as far as algae and biofilm. So what we found that really works for us is having a tank that just fully cycled, in the sense, yes, there's good bacteria in there, but it's also really good amount of biofilm and algae in there. So the way we cycle our tanks is kind of a merge between I guess what we're familiar here in the States, using the bacteria in the bottle, starting that, but also we incorporate the method from Taiwan, where the all the successful breeders come from. Well, not all, but a lot of them. So we kind of just merged the two, and I found that it really works for us. So the way we cycle is typically, for a Neocaridina tank, we put in inert substrate. So we use, I guess, I started off with just pool filter sand, but also you can use, black diamond blasting sand, or basically any sand, any substrate that you like there that's inert. For Caridina, you can start off with any of the shrimp substrate to buffer your pH, to lower the pH. So we start off with substrate, fill up with water. I like adding plants in my tanks, specifically moss. But any plant will do, because plants are great. They're great. They're great to make the tank look cool, but also they have a lot of beneficial stuff as far as maintaining water parameters. And we fill up with water, and then we add in bacteria. So I like using Stability right now by CChem. We don't sell them, but I mean, this it's just the product that we really like. And also we add in our baby party. So that's our powder product that we found. It's not only good for babies, but it has a lot of different kinds of bacteria in there that promotes biofilm growth. So that kickstarts your biofilm growth right away. Um, so we add that in. It comes in a little shaker bottle. So we put 3 to 5 shakes in a 10-gallon tank. And then we leave the lights. We obviously put a sponge filter in there. And then we leave the lights off for the first 48 hours or so,
Okay.
just to get the bacteria growing.
Hmm.
And then we leave the lights on for 12 hours a day for the next 2 weeks. The reasoning behind it is because algae biofilm needs light to grow. So at the end of the 2 weeks, you're gonna see a really nasty looking tank. You're gonna see, you know, algae just, the green algae on your glass, and then you have, it looks, I guess, unsightly. But it's kind of what we want from a shrimp tank. We want biofilm, we want algae, we want all that cool, all that, I guess, nasty looking stuff on your tank. So to make it more presentable, we use a razor blade to just scrape off your tank walls, the front of it, just to make it look more presentable.
Hmm.
But at that point, you're ready for shrimp. Um, so you can test your water to see if your tank your filter is cycled. But at that point, we're confident in our method that we actually, just go with and add shrimp. But definitely, if you like, it's definitely recommended to test the water to see whether your bacteria is fully cycled. But yeah, the main thing here is growing enough biofilm algae for the shrimp to be happy.
Little note here in editing. Nick has actually specifically requested me after we finish this to mention this one thing because he forgot to. At the end of the cycle period, after you've got your tank all gross using his method, make sure that you do a 50% water change. There will be a good amount of nitrates in the water at this point. 50% will pull that out of the water, get it nice and safe. So scrape down your glass, do a nice big 50% water change, remineralize if you need to do so, and then from there, you're going to be good to go to start with your shrimp. Let's get back to the interview. So really, the biggest reason why dummies like me fail is that we don't have enough food. Is really what it's coming down to.
Right,
Okay.
right. Well, I think, yeah, it's not having enough that light and food as well. Yeah, because um light is definitely needed to grow all that algae.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's focus in on Neocaridina. We'll call that the easy man shrimp for guys like me who are terrible at shrimp. What would you say now after we've cycled the tank, right? We've got our ugly looking tank except for that one wall that we kept clean so we can actually see our shrimp.
Yeah.
Uh, what are the kind of your 3 or 4 tips to from this point being successful with Neocaridina?
Well, news are really easy. In a sense, once you get the water parameters right, they usually adapt to a wide range of parameters. Um, so as far as um, water changes, our shrimp likes stability. So the less you tinker with it, the better. We do a 15% water change, 15-20% water change every 2 weeks, sometimes even 3 weeks. I mean, my personal tank that I have a little nano tank that I haven't touched for maybe 6 months. They're perfectly fine. I'm not saying don't do any water changes for 6 months. I'm saying that, if you don't overfeed them, and you know and don't leave any, obviously rotting material in your tank, you're not gonna spike, your nitrates, ammonia, and their shrimp are gonna be happy. So stability is one thing, and feeding, because our goal is, to encourage as much breeding as possible. So that's our main focus. So we feed a little bit, maybe a little bit different than a hobbyist would, but
Mm-hmm.
we feed twice a day. We feed Shrimpy Party, or we often feed a Shrimpy Party and Protein Party, and then at night we feed our baby party just to get the shrimplets some food as well.
Okay.
Um, Sometimes we do feed both, so it kind of depends on our schedule. Um, but then on the weekends we throw in a snowflake just to make sure that they have enough food. So we do feed a lot, but it's mainly because, one, we want to encourage breeding as much as possible, but also um, they um, yeah, we want to encourage breeding as much as possible, and also just to make sure that they have enough food for the shrimplets to grow.
Okay.
Yeah.
So with Neos, What are we looking at for GH and KH roughly? Because water parameters are so different all over the United States. You get
Yeah,
folks in the Midwest that are in like liquid rock. You get us in the Northwest where we've got almost nothing in our water.
yeah,
What are we trying to target so that we know, like, do I
right.
need RO? Do I not need RO? Like things like that.
Yeah. So neocaridina's are a hard water species. So we use RO water in all our tanks, remineralized RO water, just because we're keeping livestock. I don't want something funky coming from the city, from our taps that we're not aware about. So
Mm-hmm.
yes, we have soft water in Washington. Yes, we can definitely use remineralized tap water, just to hit that spec. But we have it just as a precautionary measure, just in case something funky we can't test comes through the taps. Um, so we use salty shrimp. Um,
Okay.
Salty shrimp. So we target around 250 TDS or so, and our GH is around 7 to 8, which makes the KH around 3 to 4.
Okay.
So that's what we target. If your water is slightly harder than that, I mean, don't fret, they'll be totally fine. But if your water is too soft meaning like below a 3, below a 4 GH, um, definitely recommend adding some GH in there just to bring it up.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I guess we've covered kind of feeding, tank
Hmm.
setup, water parameters. Those are kind of the big things. What from a from your perspective, let's go just one step further. We start getting these shrimp to breed. What are we looking for in a neo that tells us we need to cull? What's the what's the main thing we're
Um,
looking for?
right. So culling, I guess it kind of depends on what the hobbyist is looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so neo culling it's more straightforward than Caridina culling because there's not as many factors. Um, so for example, if you have if you got some blue dreams from us and you got a few babies that are lighter blue, they look more like blue jellies because there's so many shades of blue.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they come from similar genetic lines. So you might have a blue jelly that's produced, but we found that the shrimplets that we get from our blue dreams breed true for the most part. But let's say you get a lighter blue, your goal for that tank is to keep it all dark blue, then you can cull that out into another tank and
Okay.
have a cull tank. So another example is, let's say you get a fire rate cherry, and your goal is to breed out the backline because a lot of a few varieties of shrimp have that backline across their back,
Mm-hmm.
and your goal for that tank is to have all the shrimp with no backlines, and you want them to be as red as possible. So if you see one with the backline, you can call that out. So over time, the colony will soon adapt genetically to the parents that are in the tank,
Yeah.
and so that characteristic will be bred out. So I guess to answer that question, it's kind of just whatever the hobby is, deems desirable, because there's no, I guess, right or wrong way to do it.
Yeah, so basically just kind of knowing what you want and then making sure
Exactly.
that when you find stuff that doesn't fit that parameter, removing it to a cull tank or
Yep.
however you're going to treat your culls.
Right.
Okay.
Hmm.
So Caridina.
Hmm.
We're setting up the tank basically exactly the same, just different water parameters as we were with
Pretty
Neos.
much the same. Yeah. So we use Brightwell. I also use ADA. They're great substrate. I use Fluval, shrimp stratum as well. I don't quite like Fluval because yes, they're a lot cheaper, so they're more affordable. But the batch is a little bit unstable for us in the sense that we got one batch that expires because they do run out of their buffering capacity after a certain amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
We have batches that last 2 years. We have batches that last 3 to 6 months. So it's kind of Russian roulette. So we decided to invest a little bit more in our substrate. And also they don't break down as easy as Fuvo. But if Fuvo fits your budget and you don't mind using that, that we have no complaints. We just advise to test your water a little bit more frequently to see when the substrate is is losing its buffering capacity.
Okay.
So Yeah, setting up the tank exactly the same way. Yeah, it's just the main difference is water parameters. We use salty shrimp again, GH plus. Water parameters we target is around 100 TDS, 3 to 4 GH, 1 to 2 KH. Um,
Yeah,
temperature
because we're not
wise,
buffering the extra cage, right?
right? Sorry, not KH. We have no KH in the water. We have 0 KH.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, temperature wise, we keep them around 70 degrees.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, is that kind of like for the neos and the caridinas, kind of your sweet spot as far as temperature is concerned?
Yeah, I mean, our room definitely gets cooler during the winter, and a little bit warmer during the summer. But it won't vary, maybe plus minus 3 degrees or so.
Okay.
Um, so that's kind of the sweet spot we like to see. Um, yeah. So, but we start seeing this when they get warmer,
Mm.
closer to the high 70s, 80s. We definitely see, in my experience, just from keeping tanks in a warmer area, I've seen deaths around that temperature. So we want to definitely err on the cooler side. Um, so they definitely do better when it's a little bit cooler than warmer.
Okay. Um. So, are we doing similar water changes too, or we're being really careful on our water parameters, or are we doing a little bit more with caridinas?
Same water changes.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's like most shrimp. Once you get it right, it's yeah, we do the similar frequency water changes. Just obviously the water parameters are going to be different. And we have a float valve system, so they actually get drip into the tank,
Mm.
just so that it doesn't fluctuate the parameters as much. The parameters are basically the exact same as our tanks, but just to be safe, we drip them in.
Okay. And my last kind of question, as far as the tip is concerned,
Yeah.
compared to Neos, because Caridina like that softer water and
Uh-huh.
don't want any carbonate hardness in there at all, are we going to use more botanicals with the Caridinas? You know, your Indian almond leaves or guava
Yeah.
leaves or whatever than we would with say a Neocaridina.
I would say we use them equally. So the idea of botanicals is, yeah, it might fluctuate the pH a little bit, but I wouldn't say as much. So the main thing for botanicals is providing that media for biofilm to grow,
Mm-hmm.
and also to release the tannins. Yeah, it does make the water brown if we don't boil them. So we typically boil them, depending what botanical we were using, until the water is not, maybe 3 batches. We boil it for an hour, toss the water, and do it a couple of times, just so that it's more for aesthetic look. That's for the aesthetic look. We don't want to send our customers brown water, and they're like, what is this?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the main benefit for the botanicals is provide a medium for biofilm to grow, also the tannins. But if your water does turn brown due to the botanicals, don't fret. It's not gonna harm the shrimp.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now let's get to the trouble child, the
Yeah.
Sulawesi. So
Yeah.
I know there's some major differences with Sulawesi.
Yeah.
Let's go over just, I mean, really from start to finish about how to be successful if people are going to branch out and try these really cool shrimp.
Yeah. Right. So Sulawesi, yeah, it's kind of the new kid on the block. It's been around in the States for a while now, actually. But more the White Sox, the Cardinals, they've been around for a while, but now you're starting to see more variety come in. So when I first started out with them, I bought I bought an imported wild caught Sulawesi. So they're a lot different than the homebred one, more so than the Neocaridinas and the Caridinas.
Mm-hmm.
They're a lot more sensitive when it comes to water parameters, but more so the temperature.
Okay.
So when I first started out with them, I use salty shrimp again. I use a 7.5 Sulawesi salt. I use that because I tried 8.2 and it's just a pain to get it to dissolve. You need to drop need to use CO2 injection to drop the pH for the salt to dissolve, the 8.2. But I use the 7.5 salt. It seems to work fine. The main thing with Sulawesi is using lava rock because they are rock dwellers.
Okay.
So, yeah. So we set a tank similarly to our Neos and Caridinas, but we use lava rock, and we want to make sure, there's a lot of algae on the lava rock before we introduce the Sulawesi shrimp in. Temperature-wise, we keep them around 82 degrees Fahrenheit.
Okay,
So
so
when I
we're a
first
lot warmer with these
A
guys.
lot warmer. Yeah, you could keep nails with them. Some people do. So for the wild ones, it's kind of interesting because some people, when they get them in, they throw in a couple of nails in there just to encourage them to eat the pellet food, because Sulawesi shrimp are naturally very shy. They like to hide, and they like to graze on the biofilm algae on a rock, but they don't genetically. I guess they're not programmed to eat the pellet food that you throw in there. So the trick that we use is just introducing a couple of nails, and they feed on the pellets, and the Sulawesi come out. Oh, you guys are feeding, that must be safe. So they come out and eat them too. Um,
Interesting.
yeah. So but that's for imported wild caught Sulawesi, which I think most of the time, most breeders, most importers sell that, but there are definitely importers who sell homebred ones, which um, I would definitely recommend, because the demand is still not as high, where these home breeders are not able to supply the shrimp. So you can still find home breeders out there who are willing to supply the homebred ones. But the
Okay.
homebred Sulawesi, the reasoning behind it is because a lot of them are kept in tap water. I'm not the first one to keep them in neoparameters. There are breeders who have success in keeping them in just regular tap water or neocaridina parameters. Um, and also they're a little bit more hardier than the wild caught.
Okay.
Um, but temperature wise, if you did the temperature too low, they'll definitely get weak, and get stressed. So they're really finicky when it comes to temperature. That's the reason why a lot of breeders don't sell them during the winter.
So
Um,
what's our uh, don't go lower than point? I suppose is what's the lowest temp
yeah,
without
ideally
becoming
70.
really risky.
Right. I would say, they'll do okay in 70 degrees. They won't be happy, but I guess they'll be fine. But anything below that, you run the risk of them, being too stressed out. But if you're looking to keep a colony going 78 to 84 degrees, that's kind of the sweet spot
Okay.
to be found. Yeah.
So where previously with our neos and our caroteninas, like that kind of 70-72 range is more our sweet spot. Now we really want to be in that
Yeah.
closer to 80-degree plus
Right.
range.
You can keep nails in closer to that warmer temperature. What you'll find is their metabolism increases, so they grow a lot quicker, they eat a lot more, but also it shortens their lifespan. So they don't last. They don't last as long. They actually, yeah, the fry. You're gonna see the shrimplets grow a lot quicker as well, but yeah, they shorten the lifespan when it gets too warm. Caridinas, I definitely don't recommend keeping Caridinas with Sulawesi. They just don't they don't they don't jive. They don't get along as far as the water parameters.
Is that
Yeah.
because of the carbonate hardness?
Yeah,
Okay. So
and the
we
temperature. Caridina is definitely more sensitive when it comes to
to
having
temperature.
them too warm. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've got some basics on each of the like major shrimp type.
Right.
Let's do the. We've got a basic setup. Let's say it's someone like me. Okay, we're gonna go with
Mm-hmm.
my dumb scenario because we've talked about this a little bit and you've given me some advice.
Yeah.
But someone who's keeping, say, a guppy tank,
Uh-huh.
I don't know who that would be, and wants to introduce shrimp instead of some other kind of fish cleaning crew, or just wants something that's going to pop as opposed to the guppy's color. We're already keeping slightly harder water, right? Because we're looking
Hmm.
at guppies, and in say my case, because this is totally not all about my tank, I inject a tiny amount of CO2. So there kind of is some carbonate getting into here, but we
Yeah.
use the crushed coral and stuff like that to buffer because our
Yeah.
water's so soft.
Right.
What would be the big ensuring that this established tank is going to stay successful for Neocaridina. We'll just play it simple
Right.
because most of the time when we've got an established tank, we're adding like cherries or something like
Yeah.
that, right?
Um, I mean, if you have an established tank, and I seen your tank. Not to say this question is about your tank. Uh, um, but yeah, if a tank is planted and established, the main and the water parameters, you have a good proper GH and KH in there. Um, just maintaining stability
Okay.
is the key. Yeah. So shrimp hate drastic fluctuations. Temperature wise, I mean, if you have a shrimp in the room and the room fluctuates throughout the day, that's totally fine. But I mean, if they don't like big fluctuations. If let's say you put just dump water and that's totally different temperature in the tank and drops the temperature by 5 degrees all of a sudden. They don't like that, and you're most likely going to see depths. But like yeah, shrimp once you have established tank, and it's stable, they'll do fine.
Okay. So let's say not my tank is basically no hardscape, but almost pure plants.
Uh-huh.
Most of my guppies stay top water, but am I gonna want some kind of hide to be absolutely safe, or if I have just really dense plants, is that safe enough?
If you have really dense plants, you'll be safe. I mean, you could throw a driftwood in there. Like for my tank personally, like I had just plants in there. Well, and I had one Malaysian driftwood in there, like a small little piece. But I mean, if you have carpeting plants, like for my tank, I had like dwarf sash just carpeting all over the place, and this, how dense they get.
Mm-hmm.
So, and if you have that, hardscape isn't necessary because there's plenty of hiding spaces. Yeah.
Okay, and if we've got somebody, let's say that it actually is not my tank, who's maybe not as plant dense,
Uh-huh.
what would you say is the easiest solution? Let's say I'm coming to your website, I'm
Hmm.
picking up cherry shrimp, or I'm picking up a Skittles pack.
Yeah.
I've got some plants, but maybe it's like swords and stuff where it's not super dense down low.
Uh-huh.
What should I be looking at to help make sure that those shrimp are going to be have a good place to hide, and then eventually get used to the tank and be successful?
Assuming that you have fish in there as well,
Yeah, like guppies or your
like
your
guppies.
your smaller, tetras, any of those kind of that
Right.
size fish where you're in that 1 to 2 inch kind of range.
Yeah. So if you have fish and it's not as densely planted, I definitely recommend some hardscape. So like such some choya wood. We have that. Or I mean, right now we also sell like a little bit of plants as well. We have like lava rock with some anubias on it. So
Hmm.
anything that's hardscape, just you can play around to create some hiding spaces. But even like driftwood to be great. So any hardscape that will provide hiding spaces for them would be great. Also, if the additional benefit is to have um places like more media for the biofilm to grow as well.
Hmm.
So any botanicals would be great.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Nick, again, thank you so much for giving some tips and tricks for mostly people like me who are terrible with shrimp and try to be successful.
Well,
Because like I see guys that have successful shrimp tanks, and I have quite a few that are really good at shrimp, and I get really jealous because I like shrimp. I think they're really really gorgeous, but
yeah.
majority of my tanks are these big honking rainbows that just see that as a snack. So I have to be a little more practiced, and I know there are a lot of people out there, especially in my case, like where shrimp seem, in the grand scheme of things, relatively new to the hobby as far as getting popular and common to where we can see them more often. So
Mhm.
it starts becoming a little more enticing, and you'll get suckers like me who are like, I can find a way to make that fit in my guppy tank, or I can put a 10 gallon here or there and figure out how to make it work. So getting
Yeah.
those tips to be successful, I greatly appreciate it. For those of you watching, what tips surprised you, or what has been your failure rate that you now know you need to fix? In my case, it's probably that I just did not put enough food in a tank, or just it wasn't seasoned enough because I'm no patience. But yeah, let us know down in the comments below. Again, check out Nick's website. He's got tons of awesome shrimp. He's got shrimp food. He's got some other great stuff. Choya wood if you need some hides. That's probably actually something I'm going to get more of because I love choya wood in general. check out shrimpybusiness.com. It's down in the description below. It's tagged down low. Give him a little love. And just full disclosure, I get nothing out of this. I'm just doing it because Nick's an awesome guy. And I cannot wait for when human malware is done and I can actually come directly to your shrimp room and check it out in person. I'm really looking forward to that part. So, as always, thank you once again, Nick, so much. And as always, guys, thank you so much for watching, and stay awesome.